While many bitter and jaded fans of Game of Thrones wrote Hot D off as some poorly casted cash grab prequel, I was always cautiously optimistic. Over the last several weeks, it's been satisfying watching the fandom roar back to life as the season progresses and the episodes get better and better. Even despite being an optimist, Hot D has managed to blow my expectations away. I wasn't expecting it to be this good. Having enjoyed 8 generally fantastic episodes, I was lulled into a sense of comfort about the future of the season. Episode 9 is usually the bombastic season finale that's followed by an epilogue in the form of episode 10. They're climactic and dramatic, sometimes martial, sometimes political, sometimes deeply personal. Now, my anticipation for the first ever episode 9 of Hot D was mixed with my love for the content it adapts. The Green Council is one of my favourite parts of Fire and Blood, and when I saw the list of episode titles, I realised what the showrunners were doing. Episode 9 would be the Green episode, while episode 10 will be the Black episode. Genuinely, it's a genius idea. In a show that's consistently surprised even this optimist, the last thing I expected was for episode 9, the Green Council, to be the weakest of the season so far. This review will be quite short compared to my other ones. I want to work on a big video about why the Green Council is such a disappointing episode, but it isn't fair to go into depth before the season is even over. It's possible that episode 10 will improve or worsen decisions made in episode 9. So I'll give you my general thoughts. The episode was good. The directing, cinematography and acting were phenomenal as always. The writing is solid. Sarah Hess knows how to write dialogue that fits within this world, and there are several individual scenes that I really enjoy in a vacuum. But in truth, this episode left me disappointed and bemused. There are 3 main reasons for this. To start with, the pacing is completely off. I was so underwhelmed by the Green Council itself, the namesake of the episode, the dramatic debate in Fire and Blood that feels like a Tarantino scene delivered to the showrunners on a silver platter. I was anticipating the tension building and building as the Greens on the council expressed their resentments and arguments in order to justify this coup, while the elderly Lyman Beesbury argues back, culminating in Sir Criston Cole murdering him, bloodying the hands of everyone involved, forcing them to push forwards with their coup no matter what. Let's just say I didn't get the Tarantino scene I asked for. As well as having the potential to go down as one of the best scenes in the Game of Thrones universe, it could have summarised the Green argument and won over some fans. I love the idea of viewers being split between blacks and greens, so long as it's nerds having fun and not sociopaths on Twitter who think they're debating US politics or something. Instead, we get a bizarrely rushed scene in which Beesbury is cucked of his famous book moment by being forcefully sat down to death by Criston, and then everyone just ignores him. And then Otto says no one can leave, but Sir Harold just leaves like, alright, bye bitches. Okay then. Well, to be fair, this season is covering lots of time. Certain things do need to be streamlined and cut. There's no room for the Green Council, there's no room for Criston Cole's Kingmaker speech, literally the reason he has that nickname. No, we need to save time for the King's Landing Scooby-Doo chase, in which the crime hoodie gang spend about half the episode trying to hunt down Aegon, repping that Daemon merch. I respect it. There are no stakes, I do not care, why is everything so awkward? The second big problem I have is with Aegon's characterization. So in Fire and Blood, the Blacks are clearly the protagonists and the Greens are the antagonists. I assumed that same dichotomy would stay for this show, but I imagined the Greens would be more nuanced and morally grey so that us nerds could choose a side. I mean, just from a cynical standpoint, think of the marketing potential. But with the notable exception of Alicent, I would argue that the Greens are somehow more villainous in the show, which I wasn't expecting. In particular, Aegon. Now, I never cared much for book Aegon, but I always thought he had potential as a character. A spoilt, pervy playboy who don't want it, but gets manipulated into taking the crown, setting him on a dark and twisted path. But the show has already made him dark and twisted. There's nowhere for him to go. He rapes underage maids, he watches children fight to the death, including his own bastards apparently. He's just an outright villain. It transforms the rivalry between the Greens and the Blacks into good guys with morally grey allies and flat-out villains. Kind of boring if you ask me. Now, if this were a deliberate choice, I would be disappointed, but sure, I'd get it. They want antagonists for the audience to root against. I don't agree with that creative choice, but I would understand it. But no, the creators have come out and said that they don't want to make another Joffrey, and that Aegon isn't a sadist. How can you say that about your own episode? He watches child fighting rings. Like, what? If you wanted to make him a sympathetic villain, why would you go out of your way to make him so evil early on? Like, the fans already think he's the new Joffrey. You've completely failed. The third big problem is the final scene that's been discussed to death online. Rhaenys bursts through the floor, kills hundreds of innocent commoners, stares down the high towers, and yeets. Do I mind her sparing her late cousin's family? No, as long as episode 10 shows her to be someone who wants peace and negotiation over war and bloodshed. The issue, of course, is the hundreds of corpses lying in her wake. She girl bossed them too hard. Again, I'm less concerned about the show deliberately doing something I disagree with, and more concerned about the apparent lack of awareness among the creators. Like, Rhaenys being described as a merciful person and her scene being called triumphant and awesome is just like, what? Sarah Hess was asked about the people she killed. Instead of giving, a genuine answer, she just said, "It's Game of Thrones, civilians don't count." What does that mean? They don't count to Rhaenys or nobles in this universe? Because if that's the take, then sure, I hope that gets explored. Or they don't count to the audience because it's Game of Thrones, but that doesn't mean anything. Better monarch my ass, Vizzy T would never. Probably because he was too pussy to ride a new dragon after Balerion died, but that's not the point. There are plenty of good scenes, don't get me wrong. The moment Alicent stands up to Otto is cathartic, and I like the idea of these two having a power struggle, even though it was executed kinda awkwardly in this episode. The Dragonpit coronation looked incredible, although I would have liked to see Sunfire. And the now infamous Larys scene was actually really well written and tasteful considering what happens. Some people have misinterpreted this scene as some sort of revelation about Larys' motivations. No, Larys' entire goal is not feet. That's just his payment. It's another way he exerts control over Alicent while making her believe she has some control over him. If she were paying him in coins, no one would be saying, "Oh, his whole motivation is money." Just his payment. As I said, I'll make a longer video down the road.
It would be awesome if Rhaenys just came through the floor on a dragon.